Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquette. We're so glad you joined us today to hear about some news and views in today's spacey world out there. And welcome, everybody. We have been for over 5 years producing this sort of content on YouTube where we talk about events in space history, pull some things out of the archives that we think are interesting. And we're going to do that today with a beautiful green screen here, courtesy of Mitch Rothman in Colorado. Mitch, tell us what that body of water is that you took a picture of as the aspens are starting to peak there in western Colorado. And what a beautiful scene. After all, this is planet Earth, so it qualifies as a space scene. Don't you think, Marty Winkle, my co-producer over there on our Streamlabs board? Gorgeous photo, isn't it, Marty?
I think so. That's why I figured I'd put it up there.
A year ago, you were sending us pictures from up in Long Island as you were up there for a little bit. So we welcome any of you all to send us some trees that are blooming wherever you're at there, changing color. We don't see that too much down here in Central Florida. Occasionally you'll see something that is of color for the fall, but thank you, Mitch, for sharing that. We'll see Mitch here in just a second, but we want to say that today's show, we're going to have a birthday, an astronaut birthday, a real cool guy. Neptune, the last planet, was discovered 179 years ago, though that's the first time mankind knew it was out there. It's been around for about 5 billion years orbiting the sun. And we got two cool rockets we're going to feature, as well as a hit TV show that you all know about that hit the airwaves over 60 years ago today. So want to thank our sponsor, Hyatt Place, Titusville. They are at the 405 Exchange with US 1. Many of you stayed there or visited there at our Shuttle Fest that we've had 4 of them there. So thank you to the staff of the Hyatt Place for making it a home away from home for so many of you. They, like all the 17, I think there's 14 hotels in Titusville, and then of course we're close to the Playa Linda beaches, but Cape Canaveral and Cocoa beaches also come into play here on our Space Coast, and they're all, the going rate of whatever the tourist is on there. But great hotel. You'll find that it's a family-friendly hotel with a great breakfast, and we appreciate them sponsoring so many events of ours there at the Hyatt Place, Titusville. There's Mr. Rothman himself with Eileen Collins at our fun fundraiser here at the American Space Museum last April. Of course, our Shuttle Fest 5 will be June 19th, 20th, and 21st at the Cocoa Beach Hilton Hotel, as we outgrew the Hyatt Place that I just bragged about. But Mitch, thank you for all you do. Hope you're enjoying a beautiful, beautiful, well, of course he is. Look at this vista that he sent me the other day, and simply gorgeous. I love the aspens when they change in Colorado. Mitch had a couple close-up pictures of that I might share with you later. But to get to know Mitch is to get to know a guy that's passionate about space, just like all of you are, and he freely shares his generous contributions to many organizations, including ours. His wife Paula and him go to a lot of space events around the country, and in fact around the world. And Mitch is instrumental in raising some money for our gift shop renovation, soon to be the space shop. And I've got a contractor coming and looking at some of that, Mitch, so that we do it right here. So we've got Elena Adhikara's watching, and Dave Stange, Steve Jokums, Doug Forrest, Cliff Watson. Good morning, Cliff. Hope you're feeling better as he's had some serious surgery down in Pomona, Australia. And RG Jubilee, that's right, planet Earth, the most beautiful planet in our solar system there, Rosalie. And we're going to talk about another Rosie here at the end of the show. So thank you all for chiming in and watching. Tom Celentano's enjoying our social gathering here from Connecticut. And there's Tom Usiak, who will be sitting in right beside me Friday. talking about some of his exploits as a shuttle launch photographer in the day. And mostly parked. Hello to you all there. So
How's your
beautiful.
daughter watching?
Pardon me?
Your daughter is watching.
And my daughter Jessie's watching. All right. Hi, Jessie. Robert Law. If she's watching, that means that Bop and Scoots is watching there, my two granddaughters. So, hi, girls. Hope you're being haven for mommy there. There's a real astronaut there that you all can grow up to want to respect and have her lead a great career in your life there. All right. So, today we had a special group here in the museum, about 50 veterans that were all in Berlin, in the U.S. military in Berlin, gathered here at the American Space Museum. We had 3 docents touring them around our galleries, that being John Smith, um,
Eric Baker.
Eric Baker, and Jim Tully. Thank you guys for being the docents today. This group really enjoyed our museum. They could relate particularly to our Cape Canaveral gallery that had a lot to do with defending our country. We'll see a couple rockets from there. Hope Connie McDaniel's watching there and checking out that flamingo shirt that gentleman has on there is quite unique. There at our shuttle console that fueled the space shuttle. And there they all are enjoying Eric Baker giving them a talk about these consoles and how they were repurposed from the Apollo days by flipping them upside down and reusing them with the CRT screens in them. So we really appreciate groups like this coming to our museum. Again, a group of Berlin veterans, okay? They have their own group. They meet and do things, and a lot of smiles on the faces Marty saw today, and as they enjoyed the tours, and also hopefully deposited some support there at our gift shop of things that they bought there. We're open to your tours. Just give us a call and we can bring your group here. I even do groups after hours if it's necessary. All right, here's the launch manifest for the rest of the week, courtesy of Spaceflight Now. Let me put on my spectacles. We do have tomorrow morning will be the Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe called IMAP, and that's at 7:32 a.m. with sunrise at about 7:10 somewhere in there. That could be a spectacular, what we call the jellyfish look of that second stage igniting and coming out to the ocean to land there. And our good buddy, who's our good buddy? Carlton Bailey was out there along with Chris LeMarie. Here's Chris LeMarie's remotes that he sent me a picture of. He's hoping to get the rocket passing in front of the sun tomorrow morning at 7:32 a.m. like a bunch of other astronauts will, or photographers, not astronauts. But there is the Launch Complex 39A with a Falcon 9 on it, and Chris LeMarie's situation there. You gotta cover your cameras for the weather, as weather was rolling in this afternoon about an hour ago when I was outside. And our buddy Carlton Bailey was inside the Astrotech White Room a couple weeks ago and took the picture of the 2 payloads, actually 3 payloads. The primary payload is NASA's IMAP, Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe, and it has 10 science instruments to study the boundary of the sun's influence on our solar system way out past Neptune and Pluto, called the heliosphere. Along for the ride are NASA's Carruthers Geocorona Observatory. There's a close-up that Carlton took of the IMAP, and that Carruthers Observatory is designed to observe the ultraviolet light from the Earth's geocorona. And then there is a oceanography, National Oceanography Association Space Weather Follow-On. Will monitor the sun for key space weather activity. All 3 of these spacecraft will be sent to the Lagrange point, about 1.5 million miles from Earth, and about 1 million miles from Earth. Between the Earth and the sun, it's a sweet spot where the you don't have to have thrusters, keep moving it around, and it's easily accessible to communication. So good shots there, CB, as he's gotten all the payloads in there that were undergoing their checkout and fueling, I believe, there at Astrotech, which I pass by all the time on Columbia Avenue here in Titusville, right off the 405. And then we've got another launch on Thursday, two spacecraft, a Falcon 9 Starlink at 4:36 a.m. and then an Atlas 5 off Pad 41 to send 27 of Amazon's Project Kuiper broadband internet satellites to space there. And that's an odd thing that Amazon, owned by Jeff Bezos, he's using the United Launch Alliance to launch his satellites because he doesn't have his New Glenn rocket perfected yet to launch those Kuiper communication sats. So, all right, that's the noise that's going to be happening on our Space Coast, and I'm looking forward to that early morning launch tomorrow, and hope you get some good pictures. Chris LeMarie and Carlton Bailey will be happy to share them here on Stay Curious. Well, this three-time shuttle flyer Lauren Shriver was born on September 23rd, 1944 in Jefferson, Iowa. We wish him a happy 81st birthday. A marathon runner, he carried the 1996 Olympic flame on the property of Kennedy Space Center. There he is with it. And also a very popular photo of Shriver is him sharing the candy-coated chocolates in space, otherwise known on Earth as M&Ms. Purdue graduate? No, he's not. He's the Air Force Academy. Yes, Master's of Science degree from Purdue. 3 flights, 16 days in space. Once a pilot and twice a commander. 51C was his first flight. DOD mission, top secret. Then he commanded a crew of 5 on his second mission, STS-31, that deployed the Hubble telescope. And then he commanded STS-46. So 81 years old, Lauren Shriver, proud product of Jefferson, Iowa there, and he was involved with the United Space Alliance until the end of the shuttle program there. So hope he's enjoying a wonderful birthday. We love talking about astronaut birthdays because they're in our communities doing great things, and we want you to get to know them. Just like Marty and I guess bragging, we went out to dinner with Bakes last night, Mike Baker, and enjoyed his conversation. Mike will be one of our main astronauts at Shuttle Fest 5 when we talk about NASA at Star City, as Mike Baker did about 3 years as the director of operations in Moscow for our astronauts going to the space station on Russian spaceships. So, all right. And our backdrop here, what's Mitch says, manned space. The lake is one of thousands atop the 12,000-foot Grand Mesa, the largest flat mountaintop in the world, which sure is beautiful. And Manned Space is the Facebook page that Mitch has been administrating for a few years, and it's true to our values here of preserving the memories of the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo programs. So thank you, Mitch. What a gorgeous shot there on the Grand Mesa out there in western Colorado. All right. I'm having a raisin there to give me a little extra energy here. The date was 1846. Oh, 179 years ago. Astronaut John Gottfried Gall observed Neptune for the first time in Berlin University. And here we had all these veterans, American veterans, who were stationed in Berlin, some there when the wall was built and so forth. Anyway, the 8th planet in the solar system was discovered, as Pluto was considered then later to be the 9th. But this was a big deal 180 years ago, where it doubled the size of the solar system. And it was quite a mathematical challenge. Here is one of the best close-up photos we have taken in the 1980s, a 40-year-old photo of Neptune. Neptune is the god of water, the sea, the winds. He was the Roman equivalent of the Greek god Poseidon. Okay, and his cult adopted many characteristics from the Greek counterpart. After all, the Romans stole the Greek mythology and put their names on it. And Neptune was worshipped in festivals as a god in the early, formulation of humanity, let's say. Such festivals as Nocturnalia uh, invoke the protection of people in favorable seas during navigation and trade. After all, the oceans of the day were what the cosmic ocean is today to us as we cross the void of our solar system to discover our neighbors. Well, this is a photo taken by Voyager 2 in the 1980s. It was the only spacecraft to see Neptune up close, and yet we do have some pictures we'll see of it from the Hubble and the Webb telescope. But once Uranus was discovered, naked eye, by the way, by Sir William Herschel, about 50 years before Neptune. It was noticed that Uranus wasn't exactly where it was supposed to be, therefore there must be another object past it, affecting it gravitationally, probably a pretty big object, and a lot of calculations were done by two mathematicians independently. One was John Couch Adams, okay, and he was in Germany, he was in England, and then there was Urban Leverrier, okay, a Frenchman. And Leverrier, independent of Adams, developed his own calculations, okay. Leverrier sent a letter and urged the Berlin Observatory astronomer at the time, John Gall, to search using the observatory's superior refractor there in Berlin. And they did, and they found a object that Urban Leverrier calculated mathematically should be there. All right. Also, independently, that confirmed the existence of it. They watched it move a little bit over a period of a week or so because it's so far away, it wasn't going to move noticeably within days. There was no photography, of course, in the 1840s. So, but John Adams claimed that he actually had the calculations just like Leverrier. Leverrier may have robbed him of his data. But in the wake of discovery, there was a heated nationalistic rivalry between the French and British over who deserved credit for the discovery. Eventually, an international consensus emerged that Leverrier and Adams deserved joint credit. So, however, John Gall was the first one to see it on there. So some facts about Neptune. It's, of course, named after the Roman god of the sea. It has a bright blue color, and this is caused by the methane that is dominant in its atmosphere. The planet has an extreme climate with winds that can be the most powerful in the entire solar system, up to 3,000 miles an hour winds. Okay, but the sun, it's so far away, almost 2 billion miles away, that it's about 8th magnitude, which is just below the threshold that you can see it with naked eye. However, Galileo may have seen it through his telescope and didn't know it was a planet. Okay, and Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus are bigger, but its twin in size is Uranus. Both are about 35,000 miles in diameter. The Earth is 8,000 miles in diameter, basically, okay? So, and Jupiter around 90,000 miles and Saturn around 70. So, these four gas bodies enveloped by a gigantic cloud of gas may have a bright core. Jupiter is also one of the denser planets out there, so there's something heavy inside surrounding this atmosphere on there. And we'll talk about that here in just a second and what repercussions are. Very small, though it's bigger, not as big as Jupiter and Saturn. Here is Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune seen in the same eyepiece power of a telescope. Let's say this is 200 power, okay, through my 8-inch reflector. This is about how Jupiter looks and Saturn, and Neptune is tiny compared to them because it's so far away. So it's challenging to see. I've seen it a few times. Usually, in the old days, used a star map to find it. Today, computerized telescopes will take you right there. And there's a buddy of mine, George Fleener, who took this picture of Neptune a few years ago on a 10-inch reflector in Bradenton, Florida. And yes, it has this beautiful bluish type of blue-green color to it in the telescope, and you can just tell it's a disk. Okay, so there you're looking, Marty, 2 billion miles away at the last planet in our solar system, as Pluto is now called a dwarf planet, and that's okay. It's unique in its own self, but it's still always a planet to me. So there's the look through a telescope, a very good one. Then you've got the Voyager telescope, and it took a picture as it flew by, and we saw these features, latitudinal cloud bands. They call this the dark spot. That white band that was around it actually was seen to move in the little bit that Voyager was studying it. We can see that through the Hubble telescope images. And then in the Webb telescope image on the right, that reveals the rings of Neptune. Jupiter has ropey rings like a hula hoop that you can't see through a telescope. Saturn's glorious rings. Uranus has broken up ringlets, okay, about 8 different series of them. And then Neptune has a series of 2 gigantic rings that are visible by infrared radiation. This is looking at heat signatures, infrared coming off of something. So there you see that the latitudinal weather patterns are very distinct on Neptune, even though this type of sunlight it gets is just like twilight here on Earth on there. So lots of good discoveries being made with the Webb telescope. There is a bunch of planets that go around Neptune, okay? And these are some of the inner planets on there. Neptune has a big planet called Triton that is one of the largest in the solar system. It's out further from these inner, but these inner moons of Neptune seem to control the ring system around it on there, okay? Now, we know that there is a lot of pressure in the core of Neptune as all this weight of the atmosphere is crushing down on what they think is a metallic hydrogen core, metallic nitrogen or hydrogen. And there could be a layer where it is so the carbon is crushed into diamonds. That's right. There's projected that it could actually rain diamonds in the atmosphere of Neptune if we could ever get out there to check it out. So this would be in the very lower part where diamonds are forming out of the methane and carbon that is so pressurized like a pressure cooker there. So, and one final look at Neptune from the cantaloupe surface of Triton. Very much like a cantaloupe, all right? Some sort of a demarcation there from the cold area. This is a cold moon at minus 300 below zero. And you see those little dark wisps here? Those are geysers erupting as Voyager flew by. Hubble and the Webb have confirmed this, but this is outgassing of cryovolcanoes, icy volcanoes spewing things out. And when you're a planetary scientist and you're looking at bodies in our solar system and elsewhere, the first thing you notice here, Marty, is the lack of craters. There's no impact craters. And we know that the solar system is filled with debris that everything's smashing into. And this means that this surface is rejuvenating itself over and over quite frequently, okay, to not see any impact craters there. This is rejuvenating itself maybe even on a yearly basis there. So another mystery of our solar system, way far away. It takes, Voyager took 12 years to reach it out there going 30,000 miles an hour. But it's going to be worth our time and effort to go out there and explore a, a strange world like Neptune that could have oceans underneath it with life aboard it there. So, hope you've enjoyed looking at Neptune, the last and eighth planet of our solar system, discovered 179 years ago today at the Berlin Observatory by an amateur astronomer named Gall, who used the predictions of Urban Le Verrier and John Adams, two armchair, if you will, astronomers that did a lot of calculations 150 years ago. All right, I thought it'd be fun to look at two rockets as part of our look at space history that are common out at the Cape Canaveral Space Force, and I should have put the rocket row out there, but this is the Boeing Michigan Aeronautical Research Center weapon system called BOMARC. That's what BOMARC stands for, Boeing Michigan Aeronautical Research Center. This is my favorite intercontinental rocket of the Cold War. It was a supersonic ramjet-powered long-range surface-to-air missile used during the Cold War for air defense of North America. They had these, in addition, they had these up and down the coast, even up in New Jersey. In addition to being the first operational long-range surface-to-air missile, or SAM, and the first operational pulse Doppler aviation radar used, it was the only SAM deployed by the United States Air Force, so the only one actually fired and used on there. Okay, and where's my other BOMARC? Well, I got the We're going to talk about the Navajo here. Let's jump to there's the BOMARC system that they would have stored horizontally in a launcher shelter with a movable roof, so they were horizontal and then they'd pop up. Fired vertically using rocket boosters to high altitude and then tipped over in a horizontal Mach 2.5 cruise powered by ramjets. This lofted trajectory allowed the missile to operate at a maximum range of 430 miles, controlled from the ground for most of its flight. When it reached the target area, it was commanded to begin a dive. Okay, look at it back there of it launched. And it activated a radar homing seeker for terminal guidance. A radar proximity fuse detonated the warhead, which was either a large conventional explosion or the W-40 nuclear warhead. This was a missile of mass destruction in the Cold War that could be tipped with a small nuclear warhead. 52 sites around the country looking like this. Like this, Mark, were planned, okay? Development dragged on as the Army wanted it, the Air Force wanted it, there was some politics involved. In the late 1950s, the nuclear threat had moved from manned bombers to intercontinental ballistic missions. By this time, the Army had successfully deployed the much shorter range Nike Hercules to fill this void here. It was ready to defend our country, though, in the late 1950s. The BOMARC, all right, Boeing Michigan Aeronautical Research Center's weapon of mass destruction called the BOMARC, the CIM-10. Now, as I got this out of line here, this is the North American-built SM-64, better known as Navajo, a supersonic intergalactic cruise missile, all right, built by North American Aviation. The final design was capable of delivering a nuclear weapon to Russia from bases within the U.S., okay, a 3,000-mile strike, cruising at 2,300 miles an hour, or Mach 3, at 60,000 feet. All right, that's just under 5 miles. The missile was named after the Navajo Nation, starting with NA for North America, and it sometimes is stated to be used as the acronym for North American Vehicle alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, oxygen, referring to the missile's propellants. Hydrogen peroxide, like you've got in your medicine cabinet, yes. Now, that is a view of the Navajo outside the entrance of Cape Canaveral and the Sands History Museum out there that got destroyed during a hurricane, and they rebuilt it out there. Well, originally built in 1946, the Navajo went from short range to long range as a cruise missile, okay? But it never really came to fruition. And with the launch of Sputnik, the Atlas rocket got the high priority, money-wise, over the Navajo, okay? So it was canceled in 1958 when the Atlas successfully matured. I saw an Atlas engineer, Marty, come in the door. I saw a Navajo engineer come in the door, and I introduced him out there to Murphy Wardman, the Atlas gentleman who passed away, and I thought they were going to get into a fight. I said to Murphy, I said, hey, here's a gentleman I just met. He worked on the Navajo. And Murphy Wardman, an Atlas senior electro engineer, said, oh, nice to meet you, the Never Go Navajo. And the Navajo guy squared off. These are two 80-some-year-old guys. And he shouted at Murphy. He says, we never had the money that you guys had, you know. And the Never Go Navajo was kind of the joke, like the snark-infested waters. We'll feature the snark rocket here on Stay Curious one day. So the Never Go Navajo guy and Murphy Wardman, the Atlas guy, really almost got into it. And I was like getting between them thinking these 85-year-old guys were going to duke it out. But such was the passion. Such was the passion that these space workers had for what they were doing to protect America and to push the envelope to space. So I loved it. I loved it. All right. And there is a Never Go Navajo right there, some of the remains of it. Just a little ahead of its time. The booster engine design was a Rocketdyne one, and it was used in various versions of the Atlas, the Redstone, the Thor, the Jupiter, the Redstone. And actually, this would be an indirect ancestor of the engines used on the Saturn I and Saturn V rockets. So it all has its place in history, doesn't it, Marty, when you're talking about it? As we thought history was going to be filled with images like this of astronauts just whizzing around with a hockey stick for a motor on the end of it to move him around and go and grab satellites and repair them in space, put it back up, that sort of thing on there. So, hope that you've enjoyed today's show. To go out with this episode, we're going to look at more things that we thought would happen in the 21st century, particularly how about in 1962, when 63 years ago, your favorite comic and mine, The Jetsons, aired for the first time on television. ABC's Space Age cartoon premiered on September 23rd, 1962, a Sunday night. Surprisingly, the often talked about cartoon had only one season on the air. All right. And 51 new episodes were produced for syndication in 1985 and 87, though, for a total of 75. So it had a reprise. But let's see. But that's not the only interesting little known fact about the show. It premiered in 1962 at the height of the space race. All right, as the USA and USSR were competing to make it first to the moon. Although they never specified exactly what year the show took place, original press material said it was 2062, 100 years in the future. It aired its first show in color, though not many people had color TV sets, Marty, to see it that way. All right. The theme song hit number 9 on the Billboard charts in 1986 on the reprise of the show. It debuted opposite The Wonderful World of Disney and Dennis the Menace sitcom. No wonder it had some stiff competition there. It was also preceded by The Flintstones for 2 seasons. And that's why it become a primetime uh, cartoon. Let's see. The Jetsons' future included such things as flying cars that folded into briefcases, floating cities, video chat, an all knowing computer called Rudy, short for Referential Universal Digital Indexer, and colonies on other planets. And who can forget Rosie, the robot maid there in the back seat there with Julie and Astro the dog back there. So the Smithsonian Magazine called the show, quote, the single most important piece of 20th century futurism that helped define the future of so many Americans today. And think about the things that are conveniences today. Microwave oven is not too dissimilar from the food dispenser that make anything for you. We already talked about the video chatting there that was quite novel 6 decades ago. So go find on your favorite retro TV station the Jetsons. Hopefully, maybe they're playing some issues today on one of those channels to celebrate it there. So, well, we're glad that you all are celebrating today. And Foray Do Osako Joe is watching today. WW420, thank you for watching. Carlton Bailey, thank you for sharing your images with us. And hopefully you'll get some great launch photos tomorrow morning. Robert Law's up in Dundee, Scotland, enjoying his cocktail in the evening up there. Gary Gerald probably relaxing there with his wife Donnie after a hard day's work on his farm up there in Georgia. Mostly Parked is watching. Tommy Usiak will be landing at the airport on Friday. We'll have him here in the studio to talk about some latest news. Tom Celentano, my daughter Jessie, and granddaughters McKinley and Macy. Hope you've enjoyed today. Elena's watching. Doug Forrest, Cliff Watson, Mitch Rothman, Steve Jokums, Dave Stange, and Rosalie Graziano, otherwise known as RG Jubilee. Hope that you've all enjoyed today. Tomorrow, we have got a UFO expert coming on here. I didn't tease it with a slide. Forgot about that one. But we're going to have my friend Ken Verderami, who was an Air Force colonel, very involved in many top secret projects of the Air Force, including the X-37B. But he's just going to take your questions about what he knows about unidentified aerial phenomenon, aka UFOs. And so bring it on, because he has seen some stuff that none of us have ever seen. And it'll boil down to just a couple things. One, these unidentified objects. One, we know they're not Chinese. Two, we know they're not Russian. And we know America doesn't have them. And we're the three most powerful nations technologically. I don't know if they're Indian, but we eliminate what it could be, and then you'll be amazed at what it might be. So UFOs tomorrow. Bring your questions for us and Ken Verderami. I can't wait. So I can't wait to see you again. I can't wait to see you in our museum. Until next time and tomorrow when we talk UFOs, I'm Mark Marquette saying, are they out there? Let's find out and see if we can bridge the space between all of us. Thank you.